So your first and last policy session of today is 23-hour Stabilization Center Development and Budget Update. Staff from Health, Housing, and Human Services will present, and they are Adam Brown, Deputy Director, and Mary Rumbaugh, Behavioral Health Division Director. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services.
Good morning. Oh, nope. Good afternoon. Mary Rumbaugh, Behavioral Health Division Director.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here this afternoon. So as you know, in response to community need within our recovery-oriented system of care for rapid behavioral health assessment and crisis stabilization, the Health, Housing, and Human Services Department and the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office have partnered to develop a 23-hour crisis stabilization center and shelter in the former Women's Center building at 9200 Southeast McBride in Milwaukee. We are here today with a project update and a request for your approval to proceed with next steps. We're going to keep our initial remarks here brief and leave plenty of time for questions and discussion. During our April 19th policy session with you on this project, we provided a detailed overview of the proposed programming and sought your approval to proceed with site development and program planning. We have also included this project in our discussions on plans for one-time and limited-term uses of our supportive housing services carryover balance. At the April 19th policy session, you offered strong support for this project, but asked staff to come back to you with a final funding plan before proceeding with formal solicitations for construction and program delivery services. Since that time, the project team has been working with the architect to move from initial design concepts to more detailed plans that allowed for preliminary capital cost estimates and that will allow for subsequent permitting and carrying out those formal solicitations. The costs for one-time capital improvements are estimated to be up to $4 million. The costs for ongoing program operations are estimated to be approximately $3 million. These estimates include both the 23-hour crisis stabilization center in the building's north half and the short-term shelter in its south half. Costing will not be finalized until the formal solicitations for construction services and program operations are carried out and contract terms are negotiated. But in the meantime, we've prepared a budget proposal for your consideration based on those initial estimates. And that budget proposal includes the sources of the funds. So in your packet for today is a table, and that table breaks out the one-time capital improvement costs by funding source, and then as well the ongoing program operations costs. And I split it 50-50 based on the stabilization center and short-term shelter. And that's a little bit easier to envision with regard to the program operations because they'll be distinct. But it's less clean with regard to the capital improvements because there are investments we're going to make in the building, like replacing the roof, for example, that you can't split 50-50. You got to just do that, right? Mm-hmm. So this is just trying to give you a high-level overview, and the funding sources would carry their respective share of the costs. So as we've outlined it here, as I said, the stabilization center, one-time capital improvement costs, the center and the shelter, one-time capital improvement costs are estimated to be up to $4 million. So if you split that 50-50, on the stabilization center side, we have a $1 million commitment from the Behavioral Health Division using community mental health program funds post-settlement. And recently, recognizing our efforts to carry out this project, Trillium came to us and said, we can contribute almost $200,000 to help with your project, and they're considering making an additional allocation next year as well, but this is the commitment they've given us to date. And then we've incorporated here $820,000 of supportive housing services measure funding, anticipating that even though this is crisis stabilization, behavioral health focused services, that a large portion of the people being served here will also be people at risk of experiencing homelessness. Therefore, it's a perfectly appropriate investment of our supportive housing services dollars. On the shelter side, the budget is $2 million of supportive housing services funds, recognizing that is a homeless services intervention purely. So that's the budget for the capital costs. I'll pause there. We can talk about the ongoing costs of the program operations, but I want to leave room for questions you have at this point.
Thank you, Adam, for this. Is this building currently being used for any other purpose?
It is not. It's been out of use for a couple of years now.
Okay, all right. And I see this is in partnership with the sheriff's office, is that correct?
That's
In what
correct.
regard?
Well, this is a former space that the sheriff's office used, and they approached Health, Housing, and Human Services about this partnership years ago, recognizing the impact that crisis has on our jail system, right? We have really no other place to take folks now other than jail. And so this is a more suitable setting to help them. And we need the sheriff's office programmatic partnership, right? We need their officers bringing folks to this facility. We need their leadership with our jurisdictional law enforcement partners, making sure that there is robust utilization. So they approached us on the facility. They've helped support some of the conversations with the OLCC about the transfer of the asset to county ownership. They've been keeping the lights on there with the facility's allocated costs, things like that. And Mary can speak more on like the historical context of these conversations, but it's been a long time system need that we've wanted to move forward.
And I think that's important. People in the sheriff's office have recognized that obviously some of these people don't belong in jail, and that overloads the jail system. If they can go here and get stabilized and figure out why they're committing the behavior that would bring in police to like arrest them, I think that would be healthy. I'm not saying these people are going to be set off scot-free, but they will be put on a plan and given an opportunity to make decisions. I think that's really important. Get these people stabilized and out the door. I believe Commissioner Scholl, you're up first.
I just want to check here on the $3 million operations cost. That's your projection for an annual operation cost?
That's correct, yeah.
Commissioner West.
So over the last couple of weeks or a month or so, had the opportunity to meet with a ton of the legislators really engaged on this issue, specifically on the Joint Committee on Addiction and Community Safety. And you guys heard me say I was and testified, was there yesterday, and met with like Rep. Nose and others. He is a huge fan of yours, Mary. Everybody talks about how awesome you are, and all the legislators like, you guys have a jewel in Mary, and we agree. But that did come up seriously a couple of times. But however, I was advocating with Trent Wilson when we were there, like, hey, we got some almost are really shovel-ready type projects. It's my understanding that Senator Lieber on the Senate side is really heading this up legislatively and is interested in some of these shovel-ready projects. Is there an opportunity that would help augment or benefit you? I assumed it might be capital funding that we should be also talking about as we talk about this potentially, as there is some trust in Clackamas County right now. And Mary, your name carries a lot of weight when we tell them we're doing this with you and you're working with us. So I'm trying to see if that's a strategy we've also looked at here, because I think that there may be some capital funds available for counties that are ready and that have proven themselves to be very competent with the funding they have. And I think Clackamas is on that list. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
It's a great question. I've sort of been keeping my ear to the ground about that as well, while just making sure we continue to move forward, because it's also important to note that the state is developing the rules on really what they're calling the 23-hour crisis receiving center and the stabilization side of the center. And I've sort of said, hey, but they haven't actually attached any dollars to it, so they're going to create rules without actually knowing how much it might cost. So I think I think we should keep. We should just be aware of those conversations, and is there an opportunity to say, oh, instead of using some of my post-settlement dollars that I could actually then use for some other priorities that you all have, then I think that becomes the opportunity. But I would not want us to slow down just moving forward, because we know at least we do have dedicated funding right now.
Mary, can we shift quickly? Let's say we get out of the short session a couple $1 million for you guys on this effort we're making. It's shovel ready, we've proven ourselves. How nimble can we be with our plan? Because I mean, You know, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that what we're contemplating here is an allowable use of those funds, there would be no issue as long as the state's okay with it. We said, look, we've been moving this project forward. We had allocated certain resources for it. We can certainly repurpose those resources elsewhere. There are a lot of conversations about recovery center, the need for treatment options. So Mary's funding is a little bit more flexible. If we have something that's specifically dedicated for this purpose, then absolutely, we do what we always do. We plug that in here, and we take this, and we figure out what's our next most important priority that we can fund with these resources.
And maybe, Gary, this is a comment for you too, is that I just feel like that if we are on the verge of some, and we do have some right now, some very shovel-ready projects, that's really appealing to the legislature that wants to show movement in these issues, and there's kind of a mandate for them to do that, to capitalize on it. I don't know if we put together a list specifically of real, like, we're almost shovel-ready versus shovel-ready, and let's help us go. Especially, it's always tends to be a lot about capital funding is the tough one. So I don't know if that, I think there's opportunity there, is what I'm saying. I'm hearing movement through like Rep. Nose, who said he would even champion a list for us to Senator Lieber and the leadership on this, and he would help forward that list forward for us. I'd like to take advantage of that opportunity on projects like this and other ones we're talking about.
Yes, staff can do that.
Thanks.
Just keep in mind, Commissioner West, a state-funded situation will come with mandates, and we may be more nimble to do it our way and not wait for the state to tell us every type of little whatevers. Before I go to Commissioner Savas, how many people can be served at one time? Because I counted rooms. There's 6 dorm rooms, and then I noticed there are 8 client rooms, and I'm not sure, what those are used for.
So the 8 client rooms would really be on the 23-hour side. So that's again, we're open 24/7, but somebody can't be there longer than 23 hours. So it's more of that recliner kind of model, some privacy, but with some open areas, the way that we're looking at the design of that side of the building.
And the dorm rooms are?
Those are for short-term shelter,
Right.
30 to 60-day stabilization.
Is there a delineation between the two? So one doesn't cross over to the other on our population that's being served?
Yeah, there's some nuance to the answer because of the licensure requirements of a 23-hour center. So we do need to make sure that they're separate, but they're intended to be complementary.
I would think so. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I agree with your earliest statements, Chair, that, we don't know what strings or requirements will be attached to state legislation, and the fact that we can do this without that gives us the opportunity to take advantage of, number one, the opportunity and get this going with expediency. And I think that's the imperative. I appreciate what staff does. I have learned the hard way, not on efforts of my own per se, but that sometimes if we get bogged down in something, that opportunity slips by and we have an opportunity to seize the moment. So awesome job of weaving the funds together. Great work. Let's move it. Let's do it.
I see no other comments. I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I move to approve option 1, I believe. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the funding plan and plans to proceed with solicitations for construction and program delivery for the, what are we calling this, the 23-hour Stabilization Center Development and Budget Update. Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none. Tony, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you, staff, for your thoughtful consideration and putting this plan together. It's very exciting.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
support.
You bet. Gary, what's next?
That is it for today.
Commissioners, see no further business before this commission. We are adjourned.